All right, this is an instructional video talking about installing the Lighthouse Ethereum 2 testnet beacon chain and validator clients. That's a mouthful. So basically, there are 7 or 8 teams that are working on beacon chain and validator clients for Ethereum 2. About 3 of those teams, currently being Prismatic, Sigma Prime, Lighthouse here, and Nimbus, actually have working beacon chains and clients, and I want to go through the process of setting those up and seeing how they work. So right now we're going to go through setting up the Sigma Prime Lighthouse clients, and we're going to use the Docker instructions provided here. You can see that I'm set up there. And to do this, I need to first be in the Docker group. Now, I just accidentally scratched this attempt, and so it's going to say that group already exists, but you'll need to do that. And then you're going to need to modify the user, add to group, Docker, and now you've got to reboot. Some people are going to say, Fizz, you really don't have to reboot. It's an overkill. It is. There are ways around it, but I want to provide easy instructions, and the best way I can provide easy instructions is just to have you reboot here. If you know how to use new groups, then that would be great. But just remember you'll have to use that every time you open a terminal, and it's going to be irritating. All right, so here I am again. I can check and see that I'm now in the Docker group. I needed that to happen. And I can install some dependencies. Right now I'm going to install curl and git. And so I'm going to use snap to install Docker. And again, wise people will say, man, you should never use snap to install Docker on Ubuntu because Docker develops so quickly that it's going to be an old version. That's really okay. What I want is to do things easily. We've got a good version here. This is going to work. I've tested it. So we're just demonstrating how the client works, and we don't need all the bells and whistles. All right, so now I can download Docker Compose and install it into user local bin, and let's make it executable. Again, these are things that if you use these tools every day, they're already set up, but many people have no idea about these tools. They're not developing software, and they just want to see how it works. So anyone can copy and paste these instructions and make it work. So I'm going to clone the Lighthouse Docker repository. So now I have the Lighthouse Docker. Let's go in there. Actually, yeah, I can do that. And we can take a peek. So really, we're going to be building from this docker compose.yml file. Before we do that, we need to create an environment. And this little piece of code right here, let me put an extra line there. This little piece of code will create the environment variable for you. So just copy and then type Control-Shift-V and enter, or you could actually right-click and hit paste too. That would work. If you just want to be totally sure that's there, you can do cat. I assume you're in the Lighthouse Docker folder, but if you're not, you can just go ahead and do ~lighthouse-docker.env. If you don't know about tab completion, it means you can type the first few letters of a command in tab and it will finish it for you. So if I do cat ~/li, it's going to know I'm using Lighthouse Docker, and then .e is going to know I'm using environment, and just enter. So we've got the environment set up. We are already in Lighthouse Docker, and so if it's not totally evident, we're going through these directions. I do have a small difference. They say use Docker Compose Up, and I'm suggesting you use Docker Compose Up as a daemon because you're going to want to pop out. I like to pop in and out on my windows, and the only way to do that is running it as a daemon. So when you run Docker Compose Up, run Docker Compose Up -d, and all that means is it's able to run in the background if you detach from your screen. So Docker is pulling those images. It is going to run them, about 4 images. And this needs to be container ID. So if I do let's move this out of the way a little bit. If I do docker ps, I'm going to see about 4 images running. Yep, let's make that a little bigger. Move this over here. And I don't want to make my font any smaller because then it gets hard to read on your screen. But if you want to now, you can pop into one of these windows using docker attach -- sig -proxy = false. And what this means is it's going to allow us to get to detach from the Docker instance without canceling it and closing it. So normally when you type Control-C, it's going to force close the program. But when we type Control-C here, it's just going to exit our view. So let me go ahead and do that. Docker attach -- sig proxy is false. And let's look at we want to look at the beacon node. So to do that, we find this container ID. This column is just container IDs. The first container ID is for the validator client. The second container ID is for Geth. And the third container ID is for the beacon node. And that's the one that we want. To attach to this session, we only need the first unique identifier of this container. And so the first unique identifier of this one would be 1, here C, and 1 in here D. If we had 50 containers, we might need a few letters, but we really just need the D. Wow. And so in a moment, yep, this is connecting to the beacon chain node, and it's probably going to have some issues with Geth because Geth takes a moment to get caught up. That's not really a big deal. We can let this run in the background and it will be fine. Now, like I said, the reason we use sig proxy false is so that now we can do Control-C, and when I do docker ps, I can see it still running in the background. If I did not use the signal proxy false and I hit Control-C, it would actually end that Docker process, and we don't want that to happen. So now that the beacon chain and validator and Geth are all getting started up in the background, we're going to move to a different gear, and we're going to get ready for our beacon chain deposit. So to do, our validator node deposit. And let's see where we are in the directions. To do that, we need to install Chromium. You can use Google Chrome for this. It works fine. I prefer Chromium. It doesn't really matter. Firefox has not generally worked well for me. Well, let me be clear. It didn't work well for me on Prismatic, and I'm going to kind of stick with what works for now. So Chromium should work fine. In general, I'm a major Firefox fan, but I'm happy to use what works. So I have Chromium now on this machine. I can start Chromium. And the next thing I need to do is install MetaMask. MetaMask.io. Get the Chrome extension. Add to Chrome. All right, so now I have MetaMask, and you can set up MetaMask any way you want. I have some credentials already stored that I'm going to use. And so you're welcome to hijack these. Not really. I mean, I prefer you didn't, but I can't stop you, so have at it. And now I have a wallet, and what I need now is Girly ETH. Girly ETH? Yeah, it didn't sound right, but that's what I need. And to get that, I can go here to Faucet Girly Muddit blog. And actually, while I'm here, I need to change networks to the Girly test network. Oh, well, I already have some on this account. So I need to be in the Girly testnet to make this work. And so don't copy what in fact, I'm going to pause it real quick while I add an account. Okay, what I've done is just add a private key that has some Girly ETH in it. What you'll probably need to do is go to this blog here, faucet.girly.muddit.blog. And it's very easy to begin here. Go to Twitter and copy your copy your public key, go to Twitter, tweet that key, copy a link to the tweet, and then come back here and post that link here and choose give me 6.25 ether. I can't do this now because I've exhausted my my supply, but when you do that, it works very well. You'll get a couple ether, enough to start the validator. So we're back here. I'm on the Girly test network. I have at least 3.2 ETH. You'll need 3.3 ETH, and I am ready to rock and roll. So the next thing I need to do, well, I'm actually just going to drive right to it because I know where it is. I need to follow this whole become a validator step. Kind of exciting. So, okay. I actually have to switch. This doesn't matter to you, but I was using Firefox over here without MetaMask. I need to switch to this browser with MetaMask for the following directions. Okay, so this recognizes that I have MetaMask installed, and it's asking me for this specific file, ETH1 deposit data RLP, and it's going to give me a file dialog to choose it. And so I'm going to show you how to find that file. One of the neat things in Ubuntu is about this file browser is you can hit Control L and open a specific location. So let's just go this way. So what I need to do is get into a hidden file, I believe. Sorry, I was doing that from memory, and all right, I'm just going to look for the file real fast. It is in, oh, it's in the .lighthouse. So I can't see hidden files here, but what I can do is use the Explorer. When I get to lighthouse-docker, I can do Control L. Let me just enter the full location. Home.lighthouse, nope. Home lighthouse-docker .lighthouse. And then it will get me into this hidden directory here. So I'm going to redo that because I fumbled over it a few times. Control L, tilde, that takes you to home, lighthouse. So I'm going to hit tab right now. It's going to complete that. And then I'm going to hit the period and say I'm looking for a hidden directory called lighthouse. It's going to take me there. And then I can hit enter. It will take me into this directory that was otherwise hidden. There might be a way to view hidden directories here, but I don't recall it right offhand. And so in here, I need to go to validators, and this is the public key, but inside of that is the thing I'm looking for, the ETH1 deposit data file. So I can double click on that and connect. And so before I press this button, I want to go everything, well, if I don't, it's going to time out. I want to go through everything I've done. I used git to clone the Lighthouse Docker image. I ran the Docker image. I installed MetaMask, changed MetaMask to the Girly network, got some Girly ETH, and then chose to submit my deposit, and now I'm going to confirm that deposit. This is going to send a deposit from the ETH1 network, and it's really the Girly test network. And that deposit is going to tell the ETH1 network that, hey, this guy has submitted and he's ready to become a validator in ETH2. So basically I burned that Ethereum and became an ETH2 validator. So if I want to see that, now I hope you left your window open, maybe did, maybe didn't, but you can still get to all of it. The neat thing about the other view was that it combined the output from all the processes together, but now we'll be viewing them one process at a time. And so we do that with Docker PS. And so again, Docker PS shows us everything that's running, and what we want to look at is the validator. And so, and I bet it's still syncing up, but the validator might give us some interesting information. And again, to connect to this validator, we do docker attach. Is that right? I'm typing and thinking, and I get ahead of myself sometimes. Let me refine my directions, because I know I need to use the signal. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Docker attach. I'm going to slide this over here for your benefit too. Sig proxy false. And again, this just keeps me from closing the program when I exit the screen. And I want to view the validator client, and so all I need really is that one. That's the most unique identifying. I could do 1A18, or I could type in the actual name, which is this, but I'm just doing what works for me. Make that go away. All right. And so now I'm going to show the output. It's waiting now for the beacon node to sync. It does actually sync pretty quickly, but it is recognizing my validator. It's awaiting activation, and that's where we're at. So let me show you just a couple more things. To exit this screen, I can now do Control C. Control C normally closes a program, but it's just exiting from that process. I also want to show you how to connect to ETH2 stats. And let's see, the easiest way to do that is to go to eth2stats.io. And what this is going to do is let you show up in the Ethereum stats monitor. I should have, this is my test that I did a little while ago. So under eth2stats.io, this is the prismatic testnet, but we're doing the lighthouse testnet. And you can see what's listed there. To join, we're going to go to add your node and just slide down here to where it says lighthouse testnet and copy this text. I'm going to go ahead and put this in a notepad and modify it real fast. You can do the same. Where it says your lighthouse node, I want it to say, gosh, I don't know. What's Superfizz, man? I don't know. Okay, and here you can just Control A, Control C, copy that, and I like to put it in a script. So if I'm in the home directory, I'm going to do nano eth2stats.sh. I'm just going to create a file just for my own reference, and I'm going to change mod plus x that, and now I can just run it, and it's going to run in the background. So because this runs as a Docker image, I can go back to Docker PS, and it will show up there as eth2stats. All right, so now if I go peek at eth2stats under lighthouse testnet, you can see I'm still at work. You can see I'm actually pretty close to having synced. What I'm going to do is just pause the video, and I'll come back in just a little bit to see what it looks like when it's done. It has been just a few minutes, and you can see that based on eth2stats, my node is all synced up. And so let's look and see what that looks like in Docker. And so to attach to this, Docker attach, and I want to connect to the validator. That's a 1A. Oh, this is a double hyphen. And so it is actually attached right now, but so it's going to take a minute for it to show any data. That validator is still awaiting activation on the chain. This doesn't tell us when to expect validation, but I imagine it will be pretty quick. Just so I know, this milestone is that we're all synced up. I think I may go ahead and pause again just so that we can see what this looks like when it is activated on the network. So I'm going to pause again, and we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, it's been overnight. You can see I have some kind of, maybe you don't, yeah, it will show up on the recording. I have some kind of screen artifact here that I can't get rid of. So I'm going to knock this out as quickly as I can. You'll see that the validator is still showing up here. Or that's the beacon chain is still showing up here. And if I look at the validator running, I can see that I am publishing attestations. I've got a couple of them in. All my validators are active, and it looks good. I had a good experience with Sigma Prime's Lighthouse testnet, and I look forward to what they're doing now. I hear that there's a GUI in the pipeline, so that sounds exciting. All right, thanks for watching.